Hey there, BuckTube. It's your boy Buck coming at you live from the middle of the desert where I am eating trail mix and driving in a straight line forever. That affords me a lot of time to talk to you about some books that I finished recently, you lucky duck. So, I'm going to see how many I can get wrapped up before dehydration sets in and the vultures start circling. I just finished a book called Hope for Cynics by Jamil Zaki. Our man Jamil, he's right, but he's right for the wrong reasons. What he's trying to explain to us, what his research backs up, is that we think the world is worse than it is. The world's actually a better place than any of us think it is. And I knew that already from the research of Dr. Bruce Hood. I use him all the time in talks that I have to give. And it's good stuff. Odds are he runs this study all the time where he leaves a wallet, and how many people think the wallet's going to get returned, and people generally think that maybe a third of people who find the wallet will return it, but it's always more than 2/3, always. And that's the study, and they replicate it all the time. Most people are generally honest and good and trying to do good, and we don't think of that. We think very Hobbesian, nasty, brutish, and short all the time. It can be a hard habit to break. So our man Zaki starts the book by rolling out all of these statistics saying that being a cynic will make you die earlier. It makes sense. It's also socially isolating and makes you more prone to illness because you're incapable of trust. And we're social animals, and our entire systems, the feedback of our physiology, depends on that socialization, and that's all correct. We're good. But as the book goes on, he reveals himself to be fearful, for lack of a better word. He believes himself to be a cynic for his entire life, and that's why he was so asocial, and that's why he was such a people pleaser, and that's why he hid from everything for so long and would feel guilty about it and weird about it. And I don't think it's because you're a cynic, Zaki. I think maybe you're just easily startled. I think you might just be skittish. So why I came to this conclusion is this was his big come to Jesus moment. He's talking about the book, how his buddy, who unfortunately died of brain cancer, in the introduction. So that was one of the reasons he wrote the book in the first place. This guy was the one who taught him that people were actually good and nice the whole time, and he never believed it, and now he's come around. But you must have believed it, my man, because you were people-pleasing. If you thought people were intrinsically bad, you wouldn't be trying to placate them. Unless you have Stockholm Syndrome for everybody. Well, that's not necessarily true, because we got the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So maybe you were just fawning. Maybe you were fawning over every petty tyrant who you saw. Either way, I don't think, just based on what he says in the book, I don't think that this was a sudden eureka moment for him that changed how he saw things. I think more than likely what happened there was this is how he always thought, and now it's just been freshly justified for him, and he gets to feel good about it because he feels like it's a revelation. It's not a revelation. So earlier I said he's right for the wrong reasons, and he's right that the world is better than we think it is. He's right that most people are... Rousseau was generally right. Most people are good. Most people want to be good. Most people don't go out of their way to be villainous unless they're deeply mentally ill. And even then, they think they're the hero. Everybody thinks they're the hero of the story. Everybody thinks you have it coming if they get you. But Zaki uses an example where he talks about this woman. She was a incest and rape survivor, right? And she grew up to become this activist, obviously, who was crusading against rape, this major feminist activist. And her name got out. She was so popular that she received mail from a prisoner who told her, I raped women when I was outside, and now I rape men in jail. I don't want to rape anymore. So she went in there with the intention of telling him off, because who does he think he is? And when she got there, she found out that he had organized all of these feminist literature book groups in prison, and they started a little book club called Prisoners Against Rape or something like that. And he made it his guiding star, and then he got out early for good behavior, and he bumped into her 10 years later, and he's like, man, you really turned my life around. And she's like, well, I'm glad you were able to fix that. I'm glad you were able to change your ways. And Zaki uses this as an example of the what do you call it, rejuvenative correction or something like that. How you try to correct the social milieu rather than punish the individual, because punishing the individual just makes people worse. And that's cute, but have these people just never heard of lying? This is what I mean when I say naive. That rapist just liked reading about rape. If he was legitimately remorseful, he wouldn't have continued to rape people in prison. My empathy doesn't stretch that far, fellas. I can't get to the point where I'm like, oh, that poor rapist. Won't somebody please think of the rapist? He has no choice. He was conditioned by mean old society to rape absolutely everything and sundry. Whatever's nearby, if it's a hole, he'll rape it. Doesn't matter. So, we have to have compassion for this just raping guy. We don't. That's not the case. He talks about the value of community, the necessity of community, and how it's good not only for everyone, for the community, but also for the individual. It boosts your immune system, and it lowers your stress, and you live longer, and you're healthier, and all the good stuff. Everything good that happens comes from feeling like you belong to something, feeling like you can engage and interact with others. He talks about that. He talks about how hard it was for him to overcome his fear of starting conversations with strangers. But when he did it, and then he asked them to rate the conversation. I'm sorry. So he goes and he starts these random conversations with people, and they converse briefly. And then he's like, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how good was that conversation? And the people were overwhelmingly, 8 out of 10 times, they were like, oh, it's a 10. 80% of those people, that was his finding, 80% of those people were thrilled to have the conversation. And were very happy about having the opportunity to just talk with a stranger and meet them. And I believe it. I do. I'm not saying that he's making that up. I'm not even saying that's a part of naivety. I'm just saying that your study is flawed. Because that's sort of like asking her after sex if you're the best she's ever had. She's not even say, nah, dude, you sucked. You just put yourself out there and everything. You just sat there and had the conversation. You're like, what would you give me? If you had to grade our conversation, what would you give me? You're not... It's sheer social conditioning is going to prevent most people from answering you honestly. Apparently, 8 out of 10 people from answering you honestly. Most people don't want to talk to some nebbish academic, especially a nebbish academic who is like discernibly frightful just in his writing voice. You can tell how spooked he is just in the things that he says. He's a bleeding heart liberal. I am not using that as like a pejorative expletive. I'm not trying to dehumanize him or trivialize him by calling him left-wing. That's for the audience to decide for themselves. But this is bleeding heart. Bleeding heart, to my understanding, means you care so deeply that you are unable to exercise appropriate judgment. And that's what our guy is doing. And he thinks that this is the light. He thinks that this is something new, that at last he's shed his old misanthropic ways and he can look on the bright side of life and he can finally join the rest of the human race holding hands and singing Kumbaya forever. And it's a beautiful dream. It's very cute, Zaki. It is. I just don't think you have an accurate read on the situation yet. I think you were always a soft boy. I think that you are convinced that you have found balance, but I don't think you were ever truly cynical. I don't think you were jaded. I think probably what happened is you were pouty. I think that you were sad and fatalistic, and you thought that was cynicism. And then you managed to shed that sadness and that fatalism because this guy gave you hope. This guy showed you things that you didn't know, these studies, that made you think, well, maybe things aren't so bad after all, which is how you felt to begin with. That's what was actually in your heart the whole time. But the irony is, that's what's in the heart of all the cynics, too. And it was your quote, well, I don't remember who you quoted, but it might have been George Carlin. I don't remember. I'll look it up later. But you said in the book, George Carlin or Mark Twain, definitely one of the two. You said in the book, scratch cynic and you'll find an idealist, Behind every cynic, there's a frustrated idealist. That's just a fact of life. So, real cynics were idealists first, but you were never a real cynic. You just maintained that idealism and lost faith for a while. And then you found it again because someone gave it back to you. But even that is indicative of just this sort of callow academic nature. It's the jangling of the keys. Easily led. Which, not that there's anything wrong with that. If it works for you, it works for you. Keep doing you, boo. I mean, you got your career. You're writing books. I liked the book. It was a good book. So, this is not me running my mouth. It is me running my mouth. But this is not me talking shit. You did great. I think you could benefit from a little more self-reflection, perhaps in a modality that isn't CBT. I know you talked about that one a lot. I know you like it a lot. It's a good one. I just don't think that it addresses what you are wrestling with. But not my pigs, not my farm, not my client, not my paycheck. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Buck's Books. I will probably just keep this train rolling. Talk to you soon.